Welcome everyone to Cotati Runner Park's Town Hall meeting. We wanted to be really careful about time and watch it carefully. We're going to start and end on time. We're going to be providing a short presentation where I tell you what we're doing to plan and prepare for the reopening of in-person instruction. And we're also going to have an opportunity for some questions from the audience anyway, but please know that if we don't get to your question, we will be putting together an FAQ so that we can post it to our website and everyone will have access to it. So thank you for being here with us this evening. Now I'm going to ask panelists to introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and get started.
Yes, good evening. My name is Dr. Luz Helena Perez, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for the district. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Rachel Allen. I am the Special Ed Director for the district. Nice to meet everyone. I'm glad you're here tonight.
My name is Maya Russell-Nava, and I'm the Assistant Director for Special Ed in the district.
Hi, my name is Josh Savage. I'm Executive Director of Facilities, Maintenance, and Operations.
Hi, I'm Rachel Hankerson, the principal of Marguerite Hahn Elementary School.
I'll go next. I'm Marta Posada. Nice to see or to be with you this evening. I'm the Pandemic Case Coordinator for the district.
My name's Tessa Burns. I'm a district school nurse.
Anyway, so I'm really pleased that the panelists were able to make it tonight and really share with you our planning. So I think we're ready. We're going to start our presentation. I don't know if we're ready to go or we need a little bit of time.
Both Melissa and I haven't introduced ourselves yet. So I'm Louis Gansler. I'm the principal of Rancho Cotati High School.
Melissa Quinn, principal at Lawrence Jones Middle School. So
sorry. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our short presentation and then move into the Q&A. I wanted to start with a timeline of what we're going to accomplish in the next few weeks. Anyway, one of the things that were required was the COVID prevention plan, which has already been approved. We are implementing, you can see we're implementing different phases of the health screenings. We have Crisis Go, which we're implementing. We began with staff this week. Our school sites are preparing for hybrid learning transition for some small groups of students. By March 8th, we are hoping to have optional school tours. One of the questions is, do we have to have school tours? We don't, but we really want to be able to open our doors to staff, to parents, to see how our schools are going to be set up, because it's going to look very different than it has in the past. We are currently in the final stages of working on or developing our hybrid MOU, and we are also currently writing and working on our safety plans. By March 30th, we expect to have some staff and parent training. We are required by the protocols to make sure that everyone has the safety training prior to beginning. Reopening, our tentative start date would be April 12th for grades TK2 and 6th grade. April 19th for grades 3 through 5. And then really what we wanted to make sure that parents and families understand that these last months of school would really be for academic and social emotional learning needs assessment to determine where the kids are. And, they've been on distance learning. So where are they and what do we need to do to provide support? And also that allows us the month of May to plan for summer programming for extended learning opportunities for our students and also continuing on to the fall. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Posada, our pandemic coordinator, who's going to talk about this graphic we have before us in the next 2 slides.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. As Dr. Perez said, we do have a timeline in place, but I think the one that is probably most prominent and is guiding our actions right now is a document that was issued by the Department of Public Health on January 14th, and that's titled the COVID-19 Reopening for Person Instruction Framework and Public Health Guidance for K through 12. That document is comprised of 2 documents, one that Dr. Perez identified as already having been completed. That is the COVID prevention program. And the one that we're working on now is the school guidance checklist. But I wanted to share this chart to also give us the context of how we fare and compare to all our neighboring counties and how many weeks we have been in a particular tier. Our district has been hard at work. There's been a lot of behind the scenes preparation, anticipation, and implementation that's been happening. And so this slide just showcases for you how we compare to Alameda, Contra Costa, and all the other counties that are set here. But what's relevant about this is the number of weeks that these counties have been in a particular tier. And so, as you can see, the majority of them are in the teens. If I could have the next slide, please. This, in fact, then shows us where we compare to our neighboring counties. And Marin, for instance, has been in its current tier for the 10 weeks. And the first date of that tier was in December 7th of 2020. When you look at our county, Sonoma County, as we know, this has been, all over the news and so forth. We've been in our current tier of purple since August 31st of 2020. So we're going on 25 weeks in our current tier. And reopening and preparing for that reopening under this context is something that we have had to adhere to and be mindful of when our schools were going to be ready to be opened.
Thank you. Next slide. One of the questions that we received prior to our town hall, we requested some questions. We were asked, what have we purchased to prepare for reopening and what is the cost of these items? So I don't want to read every one for you, but you can see if you look at the plan element, that is a county plan. County of Public Health directs us and says, this is what you must have in place. They look at the state guidance checklist and they said, that's not enough. You need to do more. So we have the county guidance. And then on top of that, we have a county public health, the state guidance and public health saying what we need to do. So you can see related to health screenings and making sure that no one's has symptoms coming on our campus. You can see the cost of that. We've bought barriers. When you go into a business, there's the plexiglass and we have those partitions. So that's the cost that we paid. We have to have sanitizer dispensers, touchless paper towel dispensers. You can see the cost of that. The special equipment for disinfecting our classrooms. We have to have isolation spaces, contact trace. We have to be able to contact trace, and that cost is up above and the first listed first. And I want to now again let Ms. Posada talk a little bit about Crisis Go and what that's going to do for us. And then I'm going to have Mr. Savage talk about the ventilation system and what that does to keep our students and our families safe.
Crisis Go, thanks to a tremendous amount of work that's been done by this district's IT department. Crisis Go is a platform, it's web-based and app-based that will allow us to do pre-screening. That's one of the requirements, as Dr. Perez said, it's on plan element number 3. So we need to do pre-screening of both students and staff. Crisis Go will provide that feasibility for us to be able to, as parents, to go on an app and attest to our child's well-being and readiness for school that day. And the same thing is going to be expected of parents, of staff. And after that platform will give us a feasibility of doing contact tracing. Should we have any suspected or actual exposure to COVID, we will be able to detect very quickly what cohort was impacted by that and what staffing interface with that cohort. At the schools, we've been doing some walkthroughs where this equipment is going to be located for families that may not have the feasibility of doing this through a smartphone or through a web-based. But the platform itself has been used throughout several counties now. And it's being implemented, as Dr. Perez said, for staff, or it has been implemented for staff to start using this week.
Thank you, Ms. Posada. Mr. Savage?
Yeah, hello, good evening. So we've installed what's called needlepoint bipolar ionization in all of our HVAC units throughout the district, which would be 580 units total. And what it does is that the ionization is created by applying high voltage to a pair of positive and negative emitter points. And the charged ions react and surround the pathogens, causing them to grow and making them easier to filter out. In HVAC, we use the filters that we use are called MERV filters, which stands for minimum efficiency rating value. And we use MERV 10 filters. A MERV 13 filter is the equivalent of a HEPA filter. So with using the ionization, it makes it so that a MERV 10 filter is like a MERV 13 filter. So it does the same thing. It's filtering out the different particles. And so after 30 minutes of exposure, the ionization systems have a 99.4% kill rate against COVID-19. It also works similarly effective against E. coli, MRSA, tuberculosis, C. diff, norovirus, and Legionella. So overall, it's just we're going to have a healthier indoor air quality. It also has positive effects not only for viruses but also against smoke. So when we get to the fire season again next October, it'll have a positive impact against the smoke in the classrooms as well. So our maintenance department installed these throughout the district, and they've also been going through checking airflow to make sure that all HVAC units are running correctly, and we have the proper amount of air exchanges per hour in every classroom.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. Some important information about the ventilation systems. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. This slide is what we've provided in terms of for students and staff. We're going to have to organize the students into cohorts. That really, the cost there is going to be the time and the organization, and the school leaders working on that. Just wanted to point out that the face coverings, that is only 2 months supply. The state provided 2 months, and then we purchased 2 months supply. So we currently on hand have 4 months supply, but we wanted to let you know what the cost of that would be, what the district has purchased, since that was a request. We know we have to test staff, and that's no cost because it would be charged to their benefits, to their personal health benefits. So that's a little reassuring. The routine testing of students, this is an estimate of the cost. It is something that's recommended. It was a newer protocol requirement as of January 14th. We're still learning about this, but we wanted to share that information with you at this time. That's what we know. And then, of course, we have to make sure that the kids are able to have their materials and, individual materials and not be sharing. So we had to buy some additional materials for that purpose, which you see at the end of the list. Now we're going to go on to the next slide, and we're going to talk about the vaccine clinics. We're really pleased and honored, and I really want to do a shout out to Dr. Gansler, who has opened up the tag building for the vaccine clinic. So we're very happy to be so close and so convenient for our staffs to be able to host the Sonoma County Office of Education's vaccine clinic. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Burns, our nurse, who's been very, very intimately involved in our vaccine clinic.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Yeah, we've been in the last 2 weeks, we've had the vaccine clinic going full bore. And the first week we vaccinated 1,100 staff. The second week, 2,100 staff. Because of the snowstorm, this week we had to pull back, and we just received our supply. So tomorrow and the next day we'll vaccinate 1,000 more. And our hope is to continue to ramp up as the supply is available. So this was put together, the organization and leadership is with the school nurse organization in the county, as well as the Medical Reserve Corps is helping with volunteers. And we are actually, very grateful for Rancho Cotati High School and Dr. Gansler allowing us to have this at the tag building. It's been just a wonderful facility for this purpose. And what we've been giving is the Moderna vaccine, and it does require the 28-day period for the 2 doses. And And we're just going to go forward, hopefully get all our educators that want to be vaccinated sooner than later so we can feel safe going back to school and being with our kiddos. Thank you.
You, Ms. Burns. The next slide, we're going to talk about what we're doing to prepare to bring some students back sooner. We've done had some thoughtful conversations, and I'm going to turn it to Dr. Perez, who's going to talk about the learning hubs and the plan behind that.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So we are very excited to have our plans in place to open what are called learning hubs. A learning hub is for a small group of students to be able to have their distance learning, but at a school campus. And so as was stated in one of the beginning slides, we're very hopeful to move into that hybrid schedule for our elementary and sixth grades coming up in April. And then again, depending on moving into the red tier and vaccinations moving forward with secondary. So in between now and that time, the learning hubs give us an opportunity for students to adjust to that hybrid schedule, have the stable internet, have the connectivity, and continue their academic support and engagement in these cohorts of students. So we are considering very special populations of students who have been significantly impacted by distance learning, English learners, special education students, and foster and homeless youth. So these are small cohorts of 14 students and 2 adults. And our principals have gone through an extensive criteria selection to determine the students that would be returning. And so we are anticipating, again, TK through 6th grade learning hubs to open on March 8th. So students that have been identified will be receiving a letter from their school principal.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Next. So I think it's the next slide is we're going to talk about a little bit about hybrid learning. Some of you may be aware, not everybody may be aware that it's going to look a little bit different. And I think I have Dr. Perez or Principal Hankerson to discuss a little bit of what the classrooms will look like.
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. Yeah, so in hybrid learning, we will have 14 students and up to 2 adults in a classroom. It'll be, do you want me to say well, I guess we're thinking the elementary level, we're going to have an AM PM model. So the students will come for a couple hours either in the morning or in the afternoon. I know there was a question earlier about if people could stay in the distance learning, and yes, you would just be in one of those groups and your student would still be able to participate with their current class. They're going to have to be 6 feet apart. So maintenance has been working really hard to get all of our classes up and ready. We have desks that are in our rooms and they still look pretty cute. I mean, there's still things on the walls and, but the main purpose, especially, is just to keep the kids safe and keep everybody 6 feet apart. All of the extra furniture has been removed. And again, maintenance has already done that, which is exciting. And then I guess, so when they're not there in person, they'll be doing asynchronous work, which is the work that, they're not doing with a live teacher.
Okay, and if we can have the next slide, we have, I apologize, we only have one picture, but this gives you an idea of how we physically distance in the classroom, and we actually measure to make sure that that each desk is 6 feet apart. This happens to be a classroom at Rancho Cotati High School, but most of our classrooms very, very similar in terms of the setup and kind of the distancing. The next slide, we're going to get into talking about the schedule. And I don't know if it's Dr. Perez or Principal Hankerson that want to discuss the schedule.
I'm happy to take that one, and then Principal Hankerson can provide clarification. We have had a committee working for some time on determining what schedule would be most feasible and work the best at this time. And what we've determined is an AM PM schedule, so that we have a cohort A and a cohort B, where cohort A attends in the morning and receives their instruction in school from 8:10 to 10:30. And then there is a 2-hour break in the day on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays to allow for sufficient and required cleaning between cohorts. Then in the afternoon, 12:30 to 3, cohort B would be participating in their instructional time at school. And it would be the same lesson then that got presented in the morning to cohort A. On Wednesdays, both cohorts have online class meeting in the morning. This allows for the staff to continue their professional development, their professional learning communities where they analyze data and discuss best practices and their planning time. So that will continue as it has been on Wednesdays. So again, an AM PM cohort where one group is attending in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and another group is attending in the afternoons. So students are assigned to either cohort A or B. And if a student wishes to remain participating via distance learning, they can do so, whether they're assigned to cohort A or cohort B.
I do want to remind you that this is a draft schedule. So we believe it'll look like this. There might be some modifications we need to make, but it's still in draft form. Any other details, Principal Hankerson?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gansler.
All right, thank you, Dr.
Right?
Perez. So this is, the answer to the question of what would happen if we go back this year. As a quick reminder that we would need to be in the red tier before we would be have the option to do so. So if you look at the first 3 blocks, those schedules, that period of time between 8:30 and 10:30 would look exactly as it does now. And we would have those online classes and our +1 or learning center. And then there would be a break. And if you jump down to the bottom third there's a box called InPerson tutorial. And that would be about 45 minutes. It would start at 12:30. And it would be a few times per week. And for those students who want to have direct in-person contact with their teacher, they could do so. For the students who want to remain online, everything is exactly the same as it was. So in this way, we've received a lot of questions about what are you going to do? Why would you disrupt students at the end of the year if you go back? And in this way, we are able to offer the exact same schedule and add an additional option. And so the schedule would allow us to continue as we have been, and also for those students who want it and would very much like to see their teachers in person, they would have the option to do so as well. So I'm done with that slide if you want to advance to the next one. Thank you. So this next slide is, we're going to talk about graduation. So there's been a lot of questions about that. We know that this is by far one of the most emotional issues in the K through 12 spectrum. They really, parents, family members have been building up towards this goal for a long time. And it's an emotional moment, and it's the culmination of years and years and years of work. And so we are trying to have as traditional a graduation as the rules allow. And so our plan at this moment is to have small groups of students come to the stadium. We will have the traditional stage in the middle of our field. We will group the students together. The family members will spread out, and we will have a small ceremony. They will exit, and then we will have another small group enter. We expect this to perhaps take a couple days, but we are looking at having up to 5 immediate family members for each student. And so the family and the student will be able to experience that traditional walk on the stage, and it will be as close as we can to approximate the classic graduation experience. Next slide, please.
Yeah. So here's some questions, although I would like Principal Quinn to talk about the middle school a little bit.
Yeah, so depending on which middle school your child attends, or which 6th grade specifically, the schedules might look a bit different. So at Thomas Page Academy, the 6th grade schedules will mirror those of the K through 5 at that site. At Tech Middle, they're going to remain on their 3x3. And then the students, because the class sizes are small, essentially they'll be divided into half and then assigned alternating days to attend their specific courses. And then at LJ, our plan is to actually maintain our current schedule. The 6th grade classes will essentially be split alphabetically, A through K and L through Z. When it doesn't work out perfectly, there will be a little bit of balancing, and then those students will be assigned to one of their core teachers because they can no longer change classes by hour. So they will stay with that assigned core teacher for the duration of the days that they are on campus. And so they'll either attend on Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday will be our deep clean day, although truthfully, deep cleaning happens every day. And then the second cohort will attend on Thursday and Friday. Regarding the promotion ceremonies, we will be doing something, and this goes for all middle schools. We met last Friday. We will be doing something similar to what Rancho Cotati High School is doing. We plan to have small outdoor gatherings. Again, attendance will be very limited, so it will likely only be parents and guardians that will be able to be in attendance. And we will be setting up a schedule to notify students when their time slot is. And we're just gonna aim for doing those ceremonies the very last week of school, probably the beginning part of the week or middle at least.
Okay, thank you, Principal Quinn. One of the things we wanted to remind or inform parents about is that we will be sending out a survey. So we're going to be targeting the elementary grades and I believe 6th grade, and we're going to be surveying all the families to let us know your needs. So for each child, you're going to complete a survey that says what will work best for you so that we can be as accommodating as possible. We know this is very different way of doing school. So we want to make sure that we are, listening to your needs. So please be aware that that survey will be going out this week. I believe Thursday. We're going to be doing that on Thursday. So be looking for the survey. Please complete it completely, answer all the boxes so that we're able to place your students accordingly and do the best job possible to meet the needs of your family. Okay, so that concludes our presentation, and now we're going to open it up to some questions we have been receiving. So I'm going to turn it over to panelists who would they've been kind of monitoring the questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Perez. And yes, in the Q&A, we have been responding to your questions. Thank you so much for the questions that you have been submitting in the Q&A. Please do so. It takes us a moment to determine which panelist will reply. And any questions that we may not get to tonight due to the need to investigate further, we will provide all of these questions and answers in an FAQ later on this week so that everybody can have access to all the questions that are being asked and all of our responses. So if you hear us go a little silent here for a minute, it's because we're actively reading your questions and assigning them to each appropriate panelist But we so appreciate your participation in the questions that you are submitting in the Q&A.
Seen a couple of questions about siblings, so I think maybe I'll just answer it live if that's okay. So in the survey, there will be a comment section. It will be helpful if you can put your child's sibling in that comment section. We like to think that we know most siblings, but we don't want to miss one. So make sure you put in the comment section their name. And when we are doing scheduling, deciding what kids will be AM and what kids will be PM, we'll make sure that we place siblings. That will be one of the top priorities, is to make sure that parents are only coming for either the morning or the afternoon group.
Thank you.
There's a question about IEP services that I would like to address. So for students who receive special education services, if they are in a special day class, that will follow the same schedule as the other classes on their campus. So for elementary, that would be the AM PM cohort schedule. And if for services, related services such as occupational therapy, speech, current health guidelines will be followed. And currently that means that we can provide some direct in-person service, only one-on-one at this point, that individual appointments can be made, but a good percentage of those services will still be provided online, if in virtual. If a family chooses to remain on distance learning, then those services would, of course, remain virtual for those families. And if a family chooses to do hybrid, we would be looking and prioritizing those who the virtual service maybe did not work, to try and make individual appointments, arrange that with the family.
Great, thank you so much, Rachel. We've got a question for Josh. Can someone explain how all the classrooms will be sanitized in between the cohorts? Is 2 hours enough time to complete this?
So another tool that we have in our toolbox is called an electrostatic sprayer. All our custodians have been trained on how to use them. And so we've done time trials. I've actually scared a couple of principals, and they thought that we had break-ins because we messed up classrooms, and to see how long it would take to clean rooms. And we're very confident that we can get all the rooms cleaned twice a day in that 2 hour window. We've studied it, we tested it, and we're ready to go. The electrostatic sprayers make the job a lot easier for us to clean a classroom. And we let the chemicals do their jobs. There's what's called dwell time or kill time. So chemicals that we purchased are hydrogen peroxide based, so that they're safe to breathe. And they have quick kill times against COVID. 1 minute, 30 seconds, things of that nature. So we spray the room, let the chemicals do their job, and then we go back and wipe them down after it's been done. So we're ready for the task.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to read another question that I think we can then address, several of us. If I choose to stay on distance learning, how will the teacher be teaching my child if they are teaching to the children in the classroom? So this model has been used in other districts where the teacher is able to having the children in the classroom, has the necessary equipment to continue to offer the distance learning teaching to students who for various reasons may not return to school. We have purchased, we're in the process of installing some cameras in the classrooms for our teachers with amazing sound systems. And so these cameras can follow the teacher if the teacher chooses to write on the whiteboard, or wherever the teacher is going in the front of the room, the camera will follow the teacher so the students can see the teacher at all times. So the students in distance learning from home will continue to participate in their instruction. This is also makes it possible in the event that, having some students in that distance learning at any point in time, we might be in a situation where we have to close down a classroom due to exposure. And so we want to make sure that the plan we put in place is flexible enough to allow for that to happen, as it is a possibility that we hope doesn't happen, but we are planning just in case.
I think along that same line, there's a question about can they decide later or change their minds regarding in-person or in distance learning? And one of the benefits of doing it this way is that as a parent, you have the flexibility to change your mind. Whereas the way that we were thinking before, it would have been set in stone. So yes, you do have the flexibility to change your mind if you start off in the distance learning and then you see like, okay, yeah, it's going well, and you hear positive things and decide you want to send your child, you can make that decision.
The other benefit of this model is that it really helps to maintain student staff relationships and maintains the continuity of learning. And again, there's just that flexibility piece. So no matter what, your child is guaranteed the opportunity to participate in the class that they have built their friendships in.
I'm going to read another question that I think either Martha or Tessa can respond to. What are the protocols in place to contact parents and isolate if a child in the hybrid class tests positive for COVID?
I'll take it. And then Tessa can help me. This is the great thing about teamwork. She can answer more from a medical perspective in terms of protocol. If a child tests positive, that was the question, or is suspected of being positive, we will inform. Well, first step is that we isolate the student, and then we inform the parent. When we have testing in place, we would do a test of the child if parent consent has been already obtained. And then based on those results, or we would send the child home, ask the family, make recommendations for the family also to deploy mitigant things like isolation, separation, as much as possible in the family. And then with the cohort, we would inform the cohort that there has been a possible exposure in that cohort as well. And that cohort would be asked to go back to distance learning until we learn of results. Tessa, do you want to add something from a medical perspective?
Bye. If they're tested, it would be before school. And so if they test positive, they would not enter into the classroom at that point. And they would go into isolation. Or if there's symptoms that are presented that causes us to put them in isolation, they would go into the isolation area and not be around other people until a parent could come get them. And communication would be made with the students and faculty, whoever has possibly been exposed to this individual. So I don't know if that helps answer the question.
We have a couple questions about if teachers don't return or are unable to return due to health concerns. We have had some discussions about bringing substitute teachers into the classroom. We want to be able to maintain the classes as they are rather than disrupt the children this late in the year. So that's something that we're looking into and doing the research. And one of the things that we did to motivate and keeping those good subs is that we raised the substitute pay to help us with that, to getting some of the subs to be there. We weren't as paying as well as other districts, so we wanted to make that a motivator so that we do have the proper subs and we don't have to disrupt the classes. And also there's a question about sports clubs and conditioning. Dr. Gansler, would you like to answer those a little bit, talk about that and the protocols around that?
I'd be happy to. The California Department of Health, Public Health, updated their guidelines on Friday, and they allowed some space for some sports that were considered to be high contact, and originally slated for only being played during orange tier. They allowed some exceptions to that. The one that most affects us is football. And the way that we can get around that to play in purple tier is to test all of our players weekly, and we will do so. In terms of just basic protocols for sports, the governing bodies and the California Department of Public Health have been very clear about what we're supposed to do, and so it's been a really wonderful roadmap for us to follow. So we've been practicing in pods. We wear masks when they arrive. They have their temperature checked. We maintain social distancing when it's appropriate. And in terms of clubs, teachers are open to volunteering for club activities and extracurriculars, and many have done so. And again, we follow very strict protocols with regard to mask wearing, social distancing, sanitizing, and we've been able to, high school students have been able to pursue many of their activities despite the fact that we're in a distance learning mode.
Thank you.
I can address the question regarding Tech High School. So yes, Tech High will be having a small in-person graduation like the other sites. And then regarding weekly contacts with teachers, it will be similar to a tutorial model where students will make appointments to actually come to campus to meet individually or virtually with their teachers, just depending on need.
So there is a question about the concerns about having cameras in the classroom. The camera actually is not focused on the children. It tracks the teacher. So and we believe me, before we implement this fully, we really are piloting and ensuring and making sure that teachers are comfortable with the cameras and seeing how it works for them, because I know there are definitely concerns, right? We had concerns when we went to distance learning and how that impacted, and cameras came into our home. So that's something that we are addressing. We're really in the pilot phase right now to see what works best for our staff and for our students.
Great. I'm going to read a question for Ms. Hankerson. What will the students on distance learning be doing during the cleaning time? Will their school day end at 10:30?
No, so it won't end at 10:30, but we're thinking that they're going to need time to get home or go to daycare or wherever it is that they're going. And so then that's when the asynchronous time would start. So potentially they're still doing Lexia, they're potentially still doing Zern. So there's computer programs that they could be doing or working on Google Docs or Google Slides. Because we get to see the kids every day, which is a huge benefit for us, or 4 days a week, it might even be that the teacher says, you're going to do this page in your math book that they, did in class. So a little bit more like traditional homework. So their day definitely doesn't end at 10:30, just the in-person sessions end at 10:30 if they were there in the morning.
There is a question also about vaccination. So we are we are currently in the process of vaccinating educators. So we're really fortunate of that. And one of the question refers to secondary teachers. We are currently prioritizing elementary because we want to be sure to open our elementary schools. But secondary teachers are also in the process of being vaccinated. So what's going to happen is we're simply prioritizing the elementary first, and immediately following that, our secondary staff will be vaccinated. The intention is to have everyone vaccinated. So it's just a matter of availability, but we are moving, and it's really a positive thing. We're really excited to see. You know, we have to wait for that supply, but we're be able to move that and be able to get folks vaccinated. And it's nice that it's close to home. It's at Cotati High School, Rancho Cotati High School.
There was a question about kindergarten drop-off and how parents will be getting their kids to class if they're not allowed on campus. We know that this is like a huge stressor and a huge concern for parents. And so every site will look a little bit different. And before school opens, there will be a time where principals are inviting the families onto campus and basically showing you exactly what our individual plans are. And then also, most of our campuses are open campuses. And so I would really encourage our families to come on the weekend and say, like, this is where your class is. And then also we will have those tours in, I think, early March, where you would be able to come on campus and see. So we will make sure that it's safe for your kids and that they get to their class, you know, no problem. But also encouraging families to definitely come to those informational days that are on campus and practice on the weekends or after school. I would also say, I was going to mute myself, but then I changed my mind. If you have a student who you know is a little bit more anxious, like, email your site principal and your teacher, and we will work with you and make sure that your kid is as comfortable as possible starting out in their new situation.
And Ms. Posada or our nurse Tessa, I see a few questions about student masks. An explanation on student masks, I think would address several of the questions in the Q&A.
The latest recommendation from Dr. Lovato in the county health department is that everyone wear a cloth mask. And those are my understanding from what's been purchased already, is that that's what we have in place in the school. I also saw a question that said, will students be allowed to wear their own masks, or will the school provide them? The students can wear their own masks, but they need to be follow the guidelines of being cloth and 2-ply. And if they forget, or if they lose it while on campus, there will be masks on site.
I did want to address some of the assumptions behind a couple of questions about reopening for secondary level. So the basic question is, you know, why aren't we reopening along with K through 6? So I want to reiterate that secondary or grades 7 through 12 can only open in red. Now, there might be some examples of schools that are in purple and are open. And the reason for that is that if a county fell into the red tier and then opened, and then the county itself went back into purple, the school could remain open. But since we have never left purple tier, we have not had that same option. So that might explain some of the variance that you see with regard, if you looked at, a few counties away and there's another school that seems to be the same level that your child is in and it's open and you're like, why aren't we open? So that's the reason I wanted to make sure everyone understood that.
And the complexity of secondary with the cohort groups, right? We've talked about that. I'm not aware of if our entire audience knows, but when we have at the secondary level, we have our teachers see 150 students, and a stable cohort is now defined as 14 students and 2 adults. So it's much more difficult. And sometimes I think that there was a lot of thinking about elementary in mind and not really addressing that secondary is a very different type of schedule. We continue to ask about the flexibility with cohorts for secondary, because right now our hands are tied and we have to really think differently about the schedule. And I have some very divergent thinkers that are thinking on their feet, but still we have our hands constrained by those protocols and those regulations.
There's also several questions about the YMCA, and we are working with our YMCA partners. And we will definitely have more details in regards to the YMCA providing the services once we go into the hybrid model. So that will definitely be included in the Q&A, and I'm sure that our YMCA partners will be providing information to students currently participating in YMCA programming. Yeah, and Ms. Hankerson is going to talk about the morning check-in and maybe address a little bit more the SEL along perhaps with Ms. Quinn, if you want to add in a little bit about the SEL component of hybrid instruction. Thank you.
Sure. So when kids, well, every morning you will get an email from either our IT department or Crisis Go. That's how we're checking our kids in, and each kid will then have like a QR code that, think of like Disneyland. When you have a fast pass, you scan it and it dings green. That means you're like good to go. You're in your fast pass time. So if you've answered your COVID questions and your student is good to go, come to school, you go up to the tent. Each school will have a couple of entry points, and they scan their code. And if the questions were answered in a way that shows that they're healthy, they will be given like a green light and a positive dinging noise, and they will be allowed into campus. If for some reason you didn't do it that morning, you forgot, whatever, all the things we have going on right now, it's going to happen from time to time. There will be a computer there for you to fill it in for your child. If you're not there, you dropped your child off at the curb, we will help them fill it in. And assuming it goes positively, they'll be able to go in. We also have, Josh, correct me if I say this wrong, thermal like scanners for temperatures. So as the kids walk through those entrance points, we will be taking their temperatures, and it will alert us if anyone entering school has a fever. I think I got it. Oh, I didn't say anything about SEL, so I could do that after if you add to that part first if you want.
no worries. So with our site being significantly larger, we're actually going to have students assigned to individual entry points where they will, again, pre-scan using the safety survey sent home through Crisis Go. They'll walk through the thermal scanners, they'll scan their little QR code, and then they're going to head directly to their homeroom class that they've been assigned to. As a part of every day's instruction, it usually starts with like a warm-up or a check-in. I know a lot of the technology that the district has purchased for us has really helped to facilitate this. It gives kids like emoji responses. Sometimes they can draw on a board. Sometimes they do just a quick whip around, or they'll do what's it called, like a waterfall response in the chat where they all answer simultaneously. So we're going to make sure that whether a student is physically in the classroom with us or whether they are tuning in remotely, that they have that connection on a daily basis. And then just another little tidbit in terms of safety on campus, because we are minimizing the possibility of exposure in different cohorts. Kids are actually going to even be assigned bathrooms for fun. So there will be things that will be different when they return, but we are going to explicitly teach them all of the new routines. There will be lots of adults around to help monitor and remind them what the new protocols are. And if anybody has concerns, by all means, please call any of us or email. I'm happy to show people the campus so that they can actually see it and understand it. It looks great, and we're ready for kids when we can return.
And we're thinking, because the kids will be coming in kind of a slow trickle for 10 minutes or so, that's a good time for our teachers to connect with the kids. And right now, a lot of our teachers are opening class meetings early and already having those conversations with kids. And so it's really an in-person version of that. And then they would start their day with the social emotional learning, which is the SEL that Lucelina was talking about.
Once again, I want to thank you all for the questions. We have done our best to respond live as we've gone. But again, there will be a comprehensive FAQ that will be made available to our parents and community. And so we are doing our best over here to get the answers, but we know that we can elaborate on these responses that we've provided tonight in our FAQ, which will include the questions and answers that our Spanish-speaking parent community will be able to provide us those questions in tomorrow's Spanish Town Hall.
I want to thank the panelists for their time. I want to thank everyone that attended our town hall this evening. As we said, we're going to have the frequently asked questions. We're also going to be providing a survey to get information on how to best plan for the return to in-person learning. But thank you so much for this evening and for your thoughtful questions. And we promise to get that FAQ out probably within a week or so that you have that available, and we will keep adding to it. And we have a reminder that we will have a Spanish town hall tomorrow evening. Thank you so much, everyone.